everyone, this is Anna from Savy Cat Realty. Today I'm going to talk to you about the 10 cheapest cities to buy in Portugal. And for those of you who don't know, Savy Cat Realty is a relocation and investment agency that helps expats settle in Portugal. We work with both rentals and purchases, and it's very important for us to understand your needs and goals, and one of our main values is cultural and financial sustainability. So we want to understand our clients in order to help them get settled in the best way possible, both when it comes to location and when it comes to the property itself. We are a team of locals that have lived in Portugal for most of our lives, and we really try to match our clients to the locations that we think are most suitable for their own needs. So if this is something that appeals to you, feel free to check our website in www.savycatrealty.com. So today's topic, this is something that you probably see a lot of articles and videos on. And I did some research and checked some of these videos, and I must say that I actually don't agree with the majority of them, and many of the locations that are shown in these videos are not at all the cheapest locations. They are generally locations with a good price-quality ratio and very nice cities, but they're not the cheapest. And today I made a list of the 10 cheapest cities in Portugal, and these are cities only, because if we were really talking about the cheapest locations in Portugal, even small villages and so on, they will all be in center interior Portugal, closer to the border, middle of the mountains, and generally with very hard accesses. We actually made an Instagram post about this recently, and these locations are all under 500 euros per square meter when it comes to purchase. But like I was saying, they are very isolated and they do not have a lot of amenities or accesses. So just to review, once again, we posted this on Instagram recently. These locations were Serrancelho, Figueira de Castelo Rodrigo, Fornos de Algodres, Meda e Almeida. Once again, these are all center interior regions, all under 500 euros per square meter, and all not very big or accessible. So today I made a list of 10 cities, and these are medium, small cities generally, with decent quality of life. You can say it's not like Lisbon or Porto where you have everything, of course, but these are cities that are generally pleasant to live in, and you have most of the basic services you need access to, and they are also very cheap, both when it comes to cost of living and cost of property. So this data, I'm going to give you the lowest and highest prices on that location. So the locations, we call it concelhos. I don't know exactly how to translate that to English, but it's like the overall location that it's then divided into freguesias that are parishes. So what I'm going to do in this video is that I'm going to give you the lowest average price on the freguesias of this location and the highest average price of the freguesias of this location. So it gives you a range of what to expect in these locations. So the first city on my list, that is actually a city that is mentioned in most of the articles, and it is correctly mentioned, is Castelo Branco. Castelo Branco is a very nice city in the interior of Portugal. It's not super isolated, it has decent accesses. You have a highway to Lisbon, but the accesses towards, you know, Coimbra and Porto and so on are not so great, and it takes a much longer. And it also takes you about 2 hours to get to Castelo Branco from Lisbon. It's a very pleasant city with a lot of monuments and parks, and it's overall a very nice location. So Castelo Branco being the cheapest city in Portugal, it has a cost between 500 and 1,000 euros per square meter on its parishes. Once again, this is data from the past 3 months gathered from the program that I use on my own company, that is basically an MLS system. And I checked data for villas because those tend to be the most common in the smaller cities and generally tend to be better priced. So once again, Castelo Branco has an average price between 400 and 1,000 euros, being the cheapest city in Portugal to buy property in, and it's definitely a very interesting option. The second cheapest city that I mention here is Fundão. Fundão is a city near Serra da Estrela, that it's the highest mountain in Portugal. It's also quite interior. The accesses are not great, and the average prices on its parishes go between 300 and 1,300 euros per square meter. This is much smaller city than Castelo Branco. Castelo Branco, it's much bigger, and it's actually not too far from Castelo Branco. People from Fundão often go to Castelo Branco in order to do the big purchases. Once again, this city is a lot less accessible than Castelo Branco too. So the third city on my list is Chaves. This was actually one of the first locations I thought of when people asked me to list the cheapest locations in Portugal. This is one of the further north cities in Portugal, and it's fairly close to the Spanish border. This city, you can buy property between 450 euros and 1,250 euros. And once again, it's quite a pleasant city. It's not super big. The accesses are not the best, but are not as bad as in Fundão. And it's fairly north, so you get a bit more rain, but the whole thing of the climate in the north being a lot worse is kind of a misconception. The average temperature is only like 3 degrees lower. You do have a lot more rain, but generally the cities where you have the biggest changes in temperature tend to be interior cities, and all of these that I mentioned so far qualify. So usually in interior Portugal you have harsher winters and hotter summers, so you have more drastic temperature differences. So the fourth city on my list is Viseu. Viseu also often comes up in these cheapest city lists. It's also a very nice city. It has a decent amount of amenities and options. It has, you know, shopping centers and all of that. It does have highway. It's fairly close. It's like 30 minutes to Aveiro. And overall, it is a pretty nice city to live in. Depending on where you're going, the accesses may not be the best. Like I said, you do have a highway that goes towards Aveiro, but I don't think you have highways on the other areas of Portugal. But don't hold me accountable on that because I'm not 100% sure. So in Viseu, the property costs are between 550 euros and 1,300 euros. Viseu is probably not the biggest, but one of the biggest cities on this list. So it does end up having a bigger range of options on a lot of things. So the fifth city is Amarante. Amarante is interior from Porto. It's about, I think it's less than an hour from Porto, like 45 minutes. and you have pretty distant accesses from Porto and Amarante. This is a very popular location for people that got outpriced from Porto to move to. So Amarante has a cost between 650 euros and 1,550 euros for villas in its parishes. And it's also a medium-sized city. It's not as historic as most of the other cities that I mentioned here. It's kind of a newer one, but it does also have a fair bit of history. So it can be a very interesting option, especially if you are looking to a cheap alternative to Porto. So that's the 5th city. The 6th city is Santarém, and this is the closest city to Lisbon on my list. It's about 1 hour drive from Lisbon, and the accesses are quite distant to Santarém. It's quite central in Portugal itself, so that can be a positive side. And the costs in Santarém are between 600 and 1,500 euros for villas. Do keep in mind that these are also the costs I've been mentioning are typically for second-hand property. If you are looking to buy something new, it's probably going to be a bit more than these averages, but it's still going to be much cheaper than the other locations in Portugal. So, Santarém is also a medium big city, and it has a bit of everything. I don't consider Santarém a beautiful location. However, it does have a very good price-quality relationship. So that is the 6th city on my list. The 7th city on my list is the closest to Algarve, because the closest you get to Algarve, the most expensive things get. It's like Lisbon. So that is Beja. And Beja is actually the capital of Alentejo, but it is actually one of the very nicely developed cities in Alentejo. And Alentejo, it's known for its dry and hot climate. It gets very, very high temperatures on the summer. And like I was saying, although Beja is technically the capital of Alentejo, cities like Évora are a lot more developed and also a lot more expensive. So Beja is a fairly big city, but it is not super well served when it comes to both amenities and accesses. So Beja has a price range between 600 and 1,600 euros on its parishes, and it can be an interesting location if you are looking for somewhere quiet and hot, but like I was saying, it does not have the widest range of amenities or accesses. Then the 8th city on my list is Vila Real. Vila Real is an interior city that is sitting on the Douro River, so it is a very scenic location and very beautiful. You do have quite a bit of tourism there because of, the tourists, the Vining tourists, and it is very beautiful. The accesses are not great. You do have a highway, but generally you always have to have some stretch where you go by the national roads that tend to be very swirly and very up and down. So Vila Real has a cost between 600 and 1,600. This can be a very cheap location, but it does tend to get a bit more inflated because being a Vining and very scenic area, so you do have a lot of big quintas with wine production and that kind of stuff, and that does spike the prices up a bit. So if you want a scenic location that it's not too expensive, Vila Real can be the place for you. So 9th location on my list is Leiria. Leiria is once again a city that often appears in the recommendations. Leiria has been growing a lot in the past few years and has been developing quite nicely. and the accesses to Leiria are quite good. You have a highway that it's very easy to get to both Porto and Lisbon, and the main highways that take you to most locations in Portugal. It is a mostly modern city, so you don't get a lot of historic things in Leiria itself, although you do have some historic locations around it, like Alcobaça. And the average costs are between 700 and 1,900. So, of course, the more central, the more expensive it will tend to be, but in the suburbs, it can still be quite cheap, and you can also still find second-hand apartments at very good prices. Leiria, once again, has very good accesses and a decent range of amenities, so it can be a very interesting location to live in from a price-quality perspective. So, the last location on my list is Viana do Castelo. And Viana do Castelo is a northern coastal location, and it's probably going to be one of the cheapest coastal cities in Portugal, as the coastal locations do tend to be inflated because of the sea view that is very demanded. Viana do Castelo, however, but yes, it does have, it's not right by the sea, the city itself, but it's quite close to the sea, and some of these parishes will be on the seafront. Either way, the cost in Viana do Castelo is between 800 and 1,550. These areas in the north tend to be very historic cities with lots of stone houses and so on, but you can also find newer property. Of course, it will be on the higher end of the costs. And once again, this is going to be one of the cheapest locations, cities that you can find with sea view. So these are my 10 lists, my list of 10 cheapest cities in Portugal. Once again, if you go for smaller locations, there are much cheaper locations than this. When it comes to popular recommendations like Caldas da Rainha and Aveiro, honestly, those are not cheap cities. Right now, both of them are probably on the 2,000 up range for more central. You can still find some cheaper things on the suburbs of the cities. And another very interesting cheap location, but it's not a city once again, is the surroundings of Coimbra, like Lausanne and Anadia. So they are one is south and the other one is north of Coimbra. And these are also very interesting locations where prices stay under 1,000 euros per square meter, and they are about half an hour drive from Coimbra, so they can be very interesting locations too, although they are not cities, so they are not on my list. So I hope this was helpful. I would love to hear your opinions if you have visited any of these locations. And once again, if you are considering buying in Portugal and you want someone local to advise you and help find the best location, we are very lifestyle and financial conscious, so we do try to help our clients according to their needs, both when it comes to cultural integration and financial integration. Feel free to reach out to us at contact@savycatrealty.com. And you can always check our website in www.savycatrealty.com. We publish a lot of articles with useful information. And of course, subscribe to our YouTube channel where we release useful videos every week. I would love to hear from you and your opinions on this video. Suggestions are of course always welcome. And I will see you all again next week. Bye!